Good afternoon, evening, morning, post-Thanksgiving dinner, whenever you might be watching or listening to this. Gabe DeArmond here on the PowerMizzou.com podcast and currently the YouTube live channel, bringing you our weekly opponent preview. Want to remind you before we get to this week's very special guest, much anticipated PowerMizzou.com show here, that every one of our pregame and postgame shows this year brought to you by America's oldest brewery, that is Yuengling. I hope that for your Thanksgiving festivities, wherever you may be, if you're traveling, bringing people in, whatever, you've already gotten your Yuengling, and you're going to have some there, have some left over for Saturday afternoon, Mizzou and Arkansas. You can visit them at yuengling.com. We encourage you to be 21 years old if you do so. Log her up. Enjoy responsibly. As always, we're going to waste no more time. Every Thursday, we preview this week's opponent. That means Arkansas this week. And look, I just want to say, Trey Biddy, I want to give you the stage to address the PowerMizzou.com fans who have been. This is the most anticipated show I've done in months. So yeah. I just introduction is yours.
A lot of love, I guess. Yeah, I'm happy to be on. I know I'm kind of a heel, I guess, for some Missouri fans, which is fine. I like stirring the drink. And as I've said before, Gabe, it's their distaste for me is all warranted.
Right. Well, and I think, look, I can only speak for me. I can't speak for you, but I think both fan bases would be somewhat disappointed to know that we've known eeach other for like 25 years and we actually kind of like each other.
I know. I tell people that all the time and they always spit, but yeah, I mean, we always, when we go to Nashville back in the days of Rivals and I guess now we'll maybe in 24/7, we'd always hang out, SEC media days, all that kind of stuff. We've always got along really well. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind stirring the pot a little bit. This was a rivalry that has some importance, I think. And I don't feel like Arkansas fans, and I'm sure, just talking to Gerard, Missouri fans, I don't know that everybody really embraced the rivalry as kind of a manufactured deal. These teams have only met 15 times. Missouri's dominated the series. Arkansas didn't take it seriously. I know when Missouri entered the league and they're going to have all this trouble and stuff, and Missouri didn't. And I think there's a lot of things when Arkansas fans, I don't think there's any doubt there's a sense that they kind of look at Missouri as lesser than, but when you look at what's going on, Missouri's beating them. And to me, Arkansas needs to embrace this rivalry more. And I feel like Missouri has. I feel like Missouri takes it, and Drinkwitz clearly stirs the drink, no pun intended, with this rivalry also. But I think it's important. The trophy, I love what David Basil does with trophies. He's done the battle for the Golden Boot trophy, the LSU one, which I think is a fantastic trophy, the Broyles Award, the Burlsworth trophy for the best walk-on. This one's a little, I don't know. You like the trophy? I think trophies should be like buckets and wagon wheels and victory bells and 24 karat gold, 4 foot tall, gaudy.
See, I hate this trophy, and one of the reasons is because it's taller than I am. Now, that is not necessarily there are a lot of things that are taller than I am, but no, the trophy just it's such a commercialized thing. Yeah. I don't like the battle line rivalry. That's a stupid name.
Borderline, and people are calling it borderline rivalry, of course, right out of the gate. But Armageddon is right there. Armageddon. Yes. It's right there. Make it tacky, make it gaudy, make it almost borderline stupid. That's what trophies games are supposed to be about. But there's every reason for this to be a rivalry now, except for the long history. I mean, you can go back to 1906 or 1901, something like that, the first time these two teams played. And then I think it's 40-year gap and then a 30-year gap. So it's not like they have a long history in that regard, but there's plenty of reason. Sam Pittman, I talked to him Monday, obviously in the press conference, but asked him, there's 3 guys from the state of Missouri. One of them's 29 years old. Why isn't there more of a presence in Arkansas recruiting in Missouri? Because there are, a number of players from the state of Arkansas on Missouri's roster, but it seems like they would battle more for recruits and obviously, being bordering states.
So correct me if I'm wrong. When Missouri came in this league, and again, I agree with you completely. This was a forced thing. It wasn't, I've always viewed this honestly as a little bit more of a basketball rivalry.
Yeah.
because frankly, that's what during the time you and I were growing up, both teams were better at. But I thought when Missouri came in this league, there was a little bit of Arkansas fans going, finally, we're not the new kids. So we're going to look down on the people that are the new kid. Now, like, is that the basis of it? Or why, why have Arkansas fans been so insistent that, like, yeah, we don't care about this game?
Well, I think a lot of it, and just your point on, the new kid on the block kind of deal. I think Arkansas, when they entered the SEC, things changed 32 years ago. For Arkansas football is still, even based on its history, regarded as one of the top 25 programs in college football history. Basically, anybody that puts a list out like that, because of what they've done in the past. And they come into the SEC, you feel like a redheaded stepchild. You feel like the schedule never works out for you, all that kind of stuff. And I think they looked at, okay, Texas A&M, okay, Missouri, come on in, get you some of this, because everybody's talking like Arkansas isn't this anymore. And then they had success. It's Missouri right out of the gate, pretty much. I mean, the SEC championship, was it first or second year for Missouri?
Second year.
Yeah, second year. I mean, that's pretty early success. Now, I will say this. I don't know that Missouri has ever had a schedule harder than Arkansas's easiest schedule. And that, I think, frustrates some fans too, because Arkansas' schedule just seems so brutal every year. But at the same time, like last year's schedule, Arkansas is not going 11-2 with Missouri's schedule. I don't know that Missouri would have gone 11-2 with Arkansas's schedule, but they certainly weren't going 4-8. But I think that's part of it. Just like Missouri comes in and has some success and feels like I don't know, to Arkansas fans, it feels like, maybe a little bit of a favorable schedule being put in the East when the East wasn't what the West was, all those kinds of things.
Well, Trey, I don't know if you understand how far east Missouri is. I mean, we're way over there, man. We're like right next to North Carolina and all those places.
Yeah, that's right. Geography doesn't matter anymore. It always annoys me when people would say stuff like Arkansas should join the Big 12 because it's a better fit geographically, as if Arkansas is going to be the only school in the country that decides to do something based on geography.
Look, USC played at Rutgers this year. So, or if they didn't, they will soon. So none of that matters. All right. I just want to put up two good comments and then we'll get to actually talking about the game. Okay. Dalton Barker says he's going to send you a map of Faurot Field so you don't get locked in after the game.
That's part of the walk and talk shtick, which I know Missouri fans are give me a lot of views on those and like to make fun of it a little bit, but that's fine. It's for Arkansas fans generally, but I appreciate the Missouri viewers too. But that's a little bit of the shtick, a little with kind of getting locked in the stadium and I don't know, just the rawness of it.
And then Freeway Jared, who is one of our loyal viewers, says he appreciates your walk and talk, loves the content, and thanks for not being John Neighbors or Ty Richardson. I know who one of those guys is. I don't know who the other guy is. Yeah. I don't expect you to comment on other Arkansas media people, but I just wanted to put that up because
I like both Jared of those guys. Fine. Yeah.
Jared.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the walk and talk comment. It's I don't know. I don't even know how I really started doing that, but it's just off the cuff raw reaction. And sometimes people are like, hey, you should be more happy about this or you should be more disappointed. I'm just doing what I am. I mean, I'm like, this is how I feel, that's kind of what it is. So
yeah. And we're all here to just kind of like, look, you can't change who you are. And we're all here to I frequently tell Missouri fans, like, you are hate watching and sending Trey's kids through college. So I'm sure he appreciates that.
That's right. I'll say this too. Like I'm getting ready to do the walk and talk last year. I'm down on the field, and this old Missouri fan, gray beard, Santa Claus kind of looking guy. He starts chatting.
By the way, gray beard describes both of us at this point.
I know. Yeah, long gray beard. Yeah. But he starts chatting me up, and I mean, we had a great talk. I just thought he was the nicest guy, and he's talking about how special the season has been and stuff, and all this stuff, and he's like, you guys will get it together and stuff. And then his buddy comes over and starts talking to me, and I mean, I had a great conversation. There's an idea that like this fan base is this or that, this or that. If you were to be introduced to like Ozzie Maverick, who's just a troll, like you would be like, Arkansas fans are terrible, but if you met the guy like I met, Missouri fans are great. So it just depends on who you like to do.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't generalize a fan base of 70,000 people by any one individual.
Almost, yeah.
All right, so this game, let's talk about this Arkansas team. I mean, here's the biggest stat to me, and I used a similar stat before Missouri played Auburn. But I looked it up. Missouri, I think, is 8-1 in one-score games in the last 2 years, and Arkansas is 1-7, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, what has like they've been close. They had 3 or 4 games against ranked teams they probably should have won last year. Like, this team clearly has talent. They're not far off. What's been the thing holding them back?
I mean, Gabe, if you expand that even farther, it's going to be like, 12 and 15 in one score games or something. I lost track of it a while back, but it was an awful number for Sam Pittman in one score games. And, he was also has a terrible record lately in when they lose the turnover battle. And that's something that Missouri does very well, taking care of the football. Last year, Arkansas had 5 turnovers, all fumbles. 5 lost fumbles. Missouri had none. But Pittman was, I think, he had an 0-6 streak in turnover loss games until the Louisiana Tech game. They actually won that one despite. So, but yeah, I think he has gotten better at making some in-game decisions. It seems like for a while there, like every time he decided to go for it at midfield, it was the wrong choice. When he decided to kick a field goal, it was the wrong choice. Like a couple years ago. So what was that? That was a 27-20, what was that, 25-27, something like that. But Arkansas,
like that. Yeah, they all blend together.
Arkansas kicked a field goal. Their last score was a field goal from inside the 4-yard line. Well, they never scored again. There were just things like that for the last couple of years, it just felt like he could not make the right choice in game. And he's done better. He's done it better. There's still things that obviously, we nitpick at and stuff, but he's done a lot better, I think, in game decision-making. But you're right. Like, it didn't make any sense, the inconsistencies of this team, especially last year when you go on the road to LSU and play them to within a field goal. You go to Alabama and would they lose by a field goal? They lost to Ole Miss by a touchdown. They went on the road to Florida in the swamp, and I don't care what Florida team you're playing, it's always difficult to win there. And Arkansas never had, and they beat them in overtime in the swamp. But they come home after that Alabama game, losing by 3 points to Alabama, which made the college football playoff. They played a 7-3 game against a terrible Mississippi State team and lost the game. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, some of they were notorious for playing down to their opponent and playing up to their opponent also. But for whatever reason last season also, they were not good at home. Like, they had a stretch from like the Ole Miss game where they blew out Ole Miss in 2022 at the end of the year to just playing awful at home. And I'm talking like losing to Liberty at home, playing terrible against Kent State, who had just got their doors blown off. It was a 1-11 team last year, winning the game, but playing, it's a 28-7 game, something like that. There was just a streak of game, the Mississippi State game that I mentioned, where they just did not give the fans anything at home, but for some reason we're going on the road and playing well. It's just kind of a head scratcher of a team. They have played a lot better this year. There's been some growing pains, I think, adjusting to Bobby Petrino's offense, which is more of a pro style attack that generally takes longer to adapt to than a spread, but they've had moments where they've gotten it. The defense hit a lull in the middle of the season, gave up basically 2 games worth of statistics to Ole Miss, just played terrible in that one. Didn't play very well against Mississippi State, even though they won and put up 58 points on them. Defense didn't play very well. But the other games, the defense has played extraordinarily well. But in one-score games, to answer your question, a long answer, but a lot of it just comes down to some of the in-game decision-making that Sam Pittman has made. And then there's some head scratcher stuff, like why did they play so poorly? Like against BYU last year, BYU won 5 games and they lost that game. They lost Oklahoma State. They were dominating Oklahoma State. I felt like at halftime,
absolutely should have.
Why are they only up 14 points? They are dominating this team. And then they found a way to lose by turning the ball over, muffing a punt on special teams, throwing a pick six, like things like that. Sometimes you get the feeling that maybe Arkansas just doesn't know how to handle success. Maybe that's ultimately the reason.
Well, you mentioned last year's game, and I watched that game, and my reaction watching that game was, this team's quit. Like, it's time to it is time to make them, like, Nothing against Sam Pittman. It just seemed like time to make a move, and they didn't make a move. And now this team looks much more bought in than they were a year ago. So I guess ultimately, like, I think Sam came into this year on a huge hot seat. Has he done enough where you're pretty confident he's going to be back next year, or is that still in limbo?
I am confident he's going to be back next year. I think he needed to get to 6 games based on what the university said. Well, I know that's what now. Personally, I don't think he's done enough to appease fans. No, I don't think that he's reached the standard of what Arkansas football should be by any stretch. I always say, like, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask an Arkansas team to go 500 in SEC play when you're not in a transition year. I don't think that's asking a whole lot. And if you win your 3 non-conference games and alternate that, that tough game every other year, you alternate your bowl game, that puts you at like 7 wins to 9 wins. That to me is a reasonable range. And I don't think that's too much to ask for Arkansas football. And yeah, you have your transition year where you only win 4 or 5 games or something, but maybe you also have those years where everything comes together and you make a college football playoff like Missouri would have done last year. They would have made the playoff if it had been in that range. But I don't know why, like, you look at Ole Miss and Missouri, teams that you feel like Arkansas should be right there in that mix as a program, and they haven't been. So yes, he's done enough. I actually reported this, Gabe. Like I'd written people have been pointing this out to me. I wrote this big article last year about what Arkansas should expect out of their football program, and then I reported that Sam Pittman will be back as long as nothing crazy happens, as long as they beat Louisiana Tech. And everybody took that like as some big endorsement of me, and they're like, all this gotcha stuff is coming at me. I was like, I'm just reporting the news here.
Right.
Like,
this is not my opinion.
Believe what Arkansas football should be a standard, and I don't feel that Arkansas has reached that. But yes, 6 wins. And I think, Gabe, you know as well as I do, we're seeing this in the climate of college football, where last year and this year, if it were 2019, Pittman probably would have been fired after last year. It's just a different climate now with teams trying to carve out money for revenue sharing and not really knowing all the uncertainty. Like, yes, there's been one Power 5 firing right now, Mac Brown.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Neil Brown probably getting fired at West Virginia.
May not be any in the SEC.
Yeah, may not be any in the SEC. Whereas, again, like, take it back before COVID era, Hugh Freeze, Billy Napier, Sam Pittman. Yeah, there definitely would have been some changes.
Yeah. All right. So 2-part question here on Bobby Petrino. Number one, I want to know, like, when it became obvious, hey, this is what Arkansas is going to do. What was your reaction? And then 2 is, like, what has he done for that offense?
When people started telling me that he was like, to watch out for Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino's in Arkansas. He's, doing this or that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let somebody else break this. I cannot believe, I can't put my neck out there and say that this is happening. Right. But when it did happen, I don't know, Gabe, that there was another move that they could have done in the offseason to settle Razorback fans down,
which is crazy.
Yeah. Like, is there another
where it was
they could have
6
hired?
years ago?
Yeah. I don't know if there's another coordinator that they could have hired in the country. So you're 4-8 as a coach. Everybody's expecting change, and it's announced that there's not change. So you can just see the toxicity building up, and then, let's see what Bobby can do. Let's bring Bobby back. All right, we'll see what Bobby can do. It's kind of like that kind of thing. But I was just blown away that it worked out, that they found loopholes and whatever else to get him back to Arkansas. And I think he's happy to be back and calling plays, and definitely feels like he, wasn't the way he wanted to leave Arkansas, obviously. But Arkansas fans also have this idea of Bobby Petrino as somebody that never had, obviously off field, but on field never had a downfall. It's like, like I compare it to like a celebrity, like Marilyn Monroe or something, who, passed away in her prime, never had that downfall. You always kind of have this image of Marilyn Monroe.
It's
and that's
Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss. Like, he didn't get fired for not being a good coach.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, similar.
Yeah. So offensively, though, like with Taylor Green, with Jaquindon Jackson, what's he done for that offense?
Well, Taylor, Well, I just felt like for whatever reason, KJ Jefferson did not jive very well with the offense, with Dan Enos, with just his role. For whatever reason, it just seemed like he kind of changed. And they had invested a lot in him, and it just, I don't know, the energy, the leadership just did not seem to be there from KJ Jefferson, and a guy that's done so much for the program in the past. For whatever reason, things didn't work out. So they needed to change at quarterback, no question. Went out and got Talon. Talon, when he's healthy, he is electric. He reminds me a lot in his stride, kind of Matt Jones, the long strider. People take really bad angles. You don't think he's picking up as much yard. You're like, how did he pick up a first down there? Like, he took 2 steps, So he's got that. He has kind of reverted a little bit. They work with him on a more over the top throwing motion. He's kind of reverted to throwing the ball a little bit lower. I think it's more comfortable for him. He hit a stretch where I think he lost a lot of confidence in himself and his protection up front. The offensive line, and Gabe, you know as well as I do that if you don't have protection up front, I don't care who you are as a quarterback, you're not going to be that good. But if you do, like, I always throw it back to this. What's the quarterback from Ohio State who was drafted by the Bears from Georgia originally?
Justin Fields.
Yeah, Fields. There was this breakdown on ESPN one time. They're like, look at the poise, look at the maturity. He goes from his first to his second read, his third, fourth, his fifth. And I'm just like, 1,002, 1,004,
he had 15 seconds in the pocket.
I'm like, of course he looks mature and poised in the pocket. He has all day to throw. So when he does have time to throw, he is very dangerous, and very dangerous with his legs also, because he can scoot. So, it's just, for him, it's been a matter of, is the protection there? And he's also very hot and cold. It's something I noticed in the spring. There were days where you're just like, I think like the first week I went out there, I was like, oh, this guy's the starting quarterback. There's no question. I see exactly why he's taking number 1 reps. And then there'd be a day where it's just like, what is he doing? Where does he think he's throwing this football? Like, he's throwing a deep ball and it's 10 yards out of bounds, like nowhere even near. So I think he's just kind of a hot and cold quarterback at times. And maybe that's just with the offense, because it is pro style attack, it's a little more complicated. But I think he's kind of hot and cold. Like, if I'm an opposing defense, I try to put as much pressure on him as possible.
All right. So finishing up with a couple just kind of broad game picture things. Give a prediction if you want. I don't care. I never ask people for them, but like, what does Arkansas have to do on Saturday to walk out with a win in this game?
Well, first of all, we talked about it. Don't turn the ball over. Missouri's done a very good job at protecting the football. Arkansas has a terrible record, as we talked about, when turning the ball over. Last year, we mentioned they turned the ball over 5 times, 5 fumbles too, not interceptions and stuff, but just carelessness, fumbling the ball. So like, that would be number 1. You got to play smart too. Like, penalties, turnovers, special teams, overcoming injuries, making your opponent pay for their mistakes. I always think that's a big one. Like, people always say stuff like, and it bugs me, oh, they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. No, you made mistakes, and then they made you pay for those mistakes. And there's a lot of teams that make mistakes and the opponent doesn't make them pay. That's what I always felt like made Alabama so good under Nick Saban. It's like, whenever you made a mistake, you paid the ultimate price for it every single time. So I would say that's a big one. When there are opportunities, whether it's a penalty that gets you the ball back on a punt or something like that, or a late hit or something like that, capitalize on those opportunities. I would say that's probably my biggest thing. But yeah, penalties, turnovers, special teams, overcoming the injuries that you have, those would all be key factors to me.
All right. So kind of along those lines, how important is this to Arkansas? Look, I think in this day and age, neither of these teams is going to the playoff. I don't know if it matters if you're going to the Gator Bowl or the Vegas Bowl or the Mayo Bowl or the Birmingham Bowl. But from Arkansas's perspective, first of all, 6-6 sounds a lot worse than 7-5, whether it is or not, it sounds worse. And then second of all, just kind of getting one in this series that's been so lopsided over the last 2 years. How important is Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I feel like there's a vibe that's different, like, in terms of, I don't know, just the approach to this game and the idea of the importance of winning it. Even Sam Pittman said that, 6-5 is not where they want to be as a program. and I don't know if 7-5 is, or is
Right.
either, but it's definitely closer to where they want to be, and it's 500 at least in SEC play, and probably does improve your bowl chances. I think the most important thing is obviously the practice. I mean, it's like another spring football basically worth of practices. So that's a very important part for developing your young players, the ones everybody that stays around anyway and doesn't hit the portal. So that's very important, I think. But yeah, I do think that there is. The more that record gets lopsided, if you're Arkansas, you start looking at that more and more, and it's like, what are we doing? Because, Missouri, like, I don't know if this will upset Missouri fans or not, but there's no way Missouri should be beating Arkansas 11, out of the 15 times that they've played. It just, and especially the streak that's going on now, which is even more damning for Arkansas. What is it, 8 of 9?
8 of 10, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that shouldn't be happening, and it has been. So I think it would mean a lot in that regard. And, I think there are a lot of Arkansas fans that don't really care for Eli Drinkwitz also. So there would be.
There are a lot of fans of a lot of teams that don't really care for Eli Drinkwitz.
I started asking myself, Gabe, was like, am I too hard on Eli Drinkwitz? And, I think it's fine. I mean, like, people don't like me, so like I can not like him and it just be that way. Like,
here's what it comes down to with Eli Drinkwitz. If he coaches your team, you really like 100%. Him. If he coaches legitimately any other team, you hate him. I mean, that's like, I've told people on our board, if he leaves here and is coaching another team in 3 years, Missouri fans will talk about how they always knew he was, they didn't like him. And all that. Like, that's all it is. It's just which clothes he wears on game day.
100%. Like, I used to say that about Bobby Petrino, like when he left, I was like, he may be an a-hole, but he was our a-hole.
Exactly. 100%. So, all right, man, Trey, appreciate it. It's been awesome catching up. Glad to have you on here. And I'm glad you took a couple opportunities there at the end to invite Missouri fans to maybe not be thrilled.
Yes. That's important. Yeah. I don't want to lose my heel status. So I like kind of like.
I hope you meet more of the nice ones on Saturday post.
Oh, I'm sure I will. Everybody seems
the intoxicated ones.
Everybody seems nice in person usually, but I appreciate you having me on, Gabe. And am I going to get snowed in? What's the status there?
1 to 3 inches is what we're hearing. So I don't think so, but I don't know how scared of snow you are living all the Arkansas, way down there, way down south.
Schools. Yeah, cancel school and get your snow tires on.
Well, if you get snowed in, I know many places we could go to get a refreshment. So we'll
perfect. A Yuengling.
Exactly. All right, buddy. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Gabe.
All right, guys. That is Trey Biddy, hogsports.com, hanging out with us for a little while, previewing the game. Appreciate Trey coming on. Appreciate all you guys hanging out. Before you leave, hit the like, comment, share, subscribe, all the buttons that the young people tell me you're supposed to hit on YouTube. Hit those. If you're listening on the podcast, say a nice thing, share it on social media. We appreciate that. And as always, got to remind you on the way out the door, as Trey did for me on his way out the door, support our sponsors. Yuengling, America's oldest brewery. They sponsor all of our pregame and postgame shows this year. We will be with you one more time Saturday night, Gerard Hamilton and I from Thoreau Field on the Yuengling postgame show. Till then, talk to you next time.